בוקר טוב לכולם, יש פה אנשים שאני מכירה ויש פה עוד כמה שאני אשמח לפתחו את המצלמה שנכיר אותם, מירי, יעל, אני לא יודעת, מי אתן? דודו, שלום אם אתה איתנו ויעקב גם, אהלן. אז המפגש היום ככה הוא מפגש קצת שונה מהדברים שעסקנו בהם עד עכשיו, אבל הוא נוגע בנושא הזה של מוגבלויות מזווית טיפה אחרת. בעצם אנחנו רוצים לדבר על הזווית של העובד, ולא דווקא על הזווית של המבקר, ואתם תגלו שיש לזה השפעה מאוד מאוד משמעותית גם על המבקרים. אז אנחנו ניגע בזה מהזווית הזו. לפני כן אני רוצה רק להגיד מילה אחת לגבי מחר. מחר מי שחבר בנושא של ההמסרה ומקבל מיילים מהארגון של ההמסרה, אז מחר יש הרצאה נוספת עם שתי נשים מקסימות שאחראיות על כל הנושא הזה של שילוב אנשים עם מוגבלויות ממוזיאון מה-Natural History Museum בלונדון. זה אחד המוזיאונים הכי גדולים בעולם בנושא של ההיסטוריה של הטבע, והם באמת הולכות לדבר על כל הגישה לנגישות אצלם במוזיאון, הם עושים שם דברים מקסימים. אז מי שרוצה את הקישור, משהו כזה, אז מוזמנים לכתוב לי ואני אשמח לשלוח לו. זה מחר ב-10 בבוקר גם בזום. אז היום אנחנו מארחים פה את ניל מגרמניה, והוא תכף יספר קצת יותר על מי הוא ומה הוא. אבל כמה מילים לפני כן על הנושא הזה של העסקה של אנשים עם מוגבלויות בכלל, כדי שנכיר את הסיפור, בסדר? אז קודם כל רגע, למה בכלל להעסיק אנשים עם מוגבלויות או לשלב כמתנדבים אנשים עם מוגבלויות? ברמה הערכית הזה, קודם כל אנחנו רוצים לדבר על חברה שהיא חברה שוויונית ומכילה, זאת אומרת שכל מי שנמצא בה יכול להיות שותף בה, אם זה כצרכן, כלקוח, ואם זה כעובד, כשותף ביצירה שלנו. אני כבר לא מדברת על העובדה שאנשים עם מוגבלויות נמצאים בסביבתנו כל הזמן, אם זה אנחנו בעוד כמה שנים, אם זה הילדים שלנו או הסבתא שלנו, ולכן אנחנו רוצים ליצור איזושהי חברה שבאמת כולם יכולים לקחת בחלק. אז זה בפן הערכי של הדבר. עוד עניין ערכי מאוד זה הנושא של העצמה של אנשים עם מוגבלויות. אנחנו יודעים היום שאנשים שמועסקים, שיוצאים לעבודה, שהם חלק ממעגל התעסוקה, והם אנשים שמרגישים טוב עם עצמם, מרגישים שותפים ושייכים בחברה, וכל הנושא הזה של העסקה הוא בהחלט מעצים אותם, מעצים את היכולות שלהם, ולא שם את הזרקור דווקא על הדברים שהם פחות טובים בהם או שהם מורכבים. זו הזדמנות נהדרת באמת לסייע ולקדם אנשים עם מוגבלויות. בפן הכלכלי, אנחנו יודעים היום שאנשים עם מוגבלויות וגם מחקרים מוכיחים שהם הרבה פעמים כוח עבודה מאוד מאוד איכותי, נמרץ, מחויב, מסור, אני אגיד בזהירות, לפעמים אפילו יותר מאנשים ללא מוגבלויות, בגלל הרצון הזה להוכיח את עצמם, בגלל הרצון באמת לעשות את העבודה על הצד הטוב ביותר, וזו הזדמנות באמת למצוא כוח אדם שהוא באמת מקצועי ומחויב. אני יודעת שהיום לפחות עם הקורונה יש לא מעט קושי באיתור של כוח אדם, כל עוד אנשים כותבים הבדלה. הזדמנות נהדרת, אוקיי? בוא נגיד ככה, אם מאיישים את האדם הנכון, התפקיד הנכון, המגבלה לא בהכרח צריכה להיות איזשהו מכשול בדרך. הארגון שלכם מתאפס כהרבה יותר מחויב לחברה, אוקיי? זה משהו שאפשר לספר אותו, אני לא יודעת ככה כמה מכם, אני אגיד ארומה, כמה קופץ לכם הנושא הזה של שילוב אנשים עם מוגבלויות. מה?
בוקר טוב.
ארומה זה סיפור שבארץ מאוד מאוד מוכר, הנושא הזה שבאמת משלבים מוגבלויות. בכל סניף שלהם אנחנו נראה באמת אנשים עם מוגבלויות שפועלים, ולכן זה באמת משהו שנראה טוב יותר, אפשר לשווק דרכו, תפסו אחרת. נושא של סיוע מהמדינה, חשוב שתדעו שמבחינת התשלום, אז זה לא משהו שהוא באמת המדינה כמעט ולא עוזרת בו, היא כן עוזרת מאוד בכל מה שקשור בהכשרה ובליווי שוטף במהלך התעסוקה. הם ממש שותפים בהכשרה, הם עוזרים בהתאמות, הם עוזרים הרבה פעמים ברכישה של ציוד רלוונטי, אם צריך ציוד רלוונטי לצורך ההעסקה של אדם עם מוגבלות, והם מלווים אתכם בכל התהליך ככה שבאמת תהיה הצלחה מלאה ככל האפשר. דרישות החוק, ארגונים גדולים, יש פה מקק"ל, יש לנו רשות הטבע והגנים, החוק מדבר על משהו בין 2% ל5% של המועסקים שצריכים להיות אנשים עם מוגבלויות, אז זה גם משהו שהוא בשלבים, זה לא צריך לקלוט את כולם בבת אחת, אבל זה בהחלט משהו שכדאי לקחת אותו בחשבון. ודבר האחרון זה נושא של בני ובנות שירות לאומי. אני יכולה להגיד שאנחנו מעסיקים בני שירות לאומי או בנות שירות לאומי עם מוגבלויות, אני יודעת שבמועצה לשימור אתרים עושים את זה, זה משהו שהוא לגמרי מומלץ לתקנים שמאוד מאוד מסובסדים, ושוב, אם משבצים את האדם הנכון במקום הרלוונטי, זה עובד מעולה. אני לא יודעת אם אתם מכירים את רז שעובד איתנו, בחור מקסים, משותק כמעט בחלק מאוד מאוד גדול מהגוף שלו, ועובד אצלנו כמדריך, קולט קבוצות של תיירים, קבוצות של תורמים, ועושה עבודה מדהימה. ובפן המקצועי אני רק אגיד עוד שזה באמת מאפשר איזשהו גיוון תעסוקתי, ויצירה של מגוון אנושי יותר רחב. זה אומר שכשיושבים לנו אנשים עם יכולות שונות, עם איכויות שונות, אז היכולת שלנו באמת לתת מענים היא הרבה יותר גבוהה. וזו הזדמנות נוספת. אני אדבר אחרי זה על למי לפנות ואיך לקדם את זה. אני רוצה לעבור לנילס, ובאמת שהוא ככה יציג את הפרויקט שלו. So Niels, I'm going to talk in English now. Hello. So I met Niels, it was about 1.5 years ago, just before the COVID began. In Vienna, we were in the accessibility conference accessibility in Vienna. And Niels won a prize, right, from them for this project that he's going to talk about now. And when I saw this project, I said that it's an amazing thing and I wish it will happen in Israel. So this is why I invited you, Niels, hoping people from here will take it and move it forward. I think Niels will talk about his project. He works in different fields of people with special needs, but today he will say a few words about it and then he will tell us about this amazing project he promotes in Germany. So Niels, you're more than welcome to talk.
Okay, thank you, Vered, for your warm introduction. And yeah, hello everybody. I'm so glad to have the opportunity to be together with you. And of course, I would like to say that our thoughts are with you in these insecure times that you're making through right now. And yeah, we wish and pray that it will soon be more peaceful. Yeah, my name is Niels. I would like to give you some information about our cooperation project with the so-called State Museum in Schwerin, which is a city close to Hamburg, to the Hamburg area north of Germany. And yeah, in this project, it's called New Ways to Arts, Museum Guidance, Always Inclusive. We educate people with special needs or with disabilities, however you would be the appropriate name for you in Israel, to be museum guides. And yeah, what the project is all about, I would tell you now. And afterwards, of course, we can get into discussion, and I would show you, yeah, 2 small movies to get an impression and catch up a little bit to the atmosphere, what my colleagues are doing there in the museum. Okay, I would now share the screen and hope that you can see it. This is, yeah, one slide pretty much that we also showed in Vienna at the Zero Conference, a worldwide conference for accessibility, but I adapted a little bit. Yeah, what does Capito Mecklenburg-Vorpommern do? We are a service within the so-called, in Germany, Diakonie and Lebenshilfe. These are two organizations which offer services for people with special needs and their families and of course society. And within this company we have a project that is called Capito, from Italian, I have understood. This is a network in some German-speaking countries. It originally was founded in Austria, in the Graz region, pretty much close to Vienna. And yeah, the aim of our services is to make society more inclusive and to make it more accessible. We originally started with translations in accessible informations and easy to read and understand information. We have like different language levels where we translate original texts in easy or plain language, and also with some pictures in order to get access. And also we make usability checks and accessibility analysis in museums and other departments and buildings and public places. Our concept is always to include the people with special needs from their perspectives into our services. This could be people with intellectual disabilities, or with blindness, or with deafness, or with mobility handicaps, because they are experts on themselves in identifying barriers in our society. So we actually let them be part of our services. And in these times, we also make a lot of web pages usability checks, that the internet services, the web pages would respond to the needs of the people. We have like worldwide rules for that, like 78 different rules for different target groups. And we let the people themselves analyze the structure and the information of the web pages. And then in the end, we of course offer webinars and seminars, workshops, and also we assist companies and organizations in developing inclusion action plans in order to make the UNCRPD become reality. Okay, this is our so-called portfolio, and these are the people, some of the people that work in my services. At the top, my colleagues and myself, and at the bottom there are some of the colleagues with special needs that are partly also in our museum project. Okay, what is the essence of our project? Like I met my now colleague from the State Museum, Art Museum in Schwerin, like 4 years ago when we started our project. And we've been together in a cafe and drinking some coffee, and we're talking about accessibility, what we could do in that museum. And of course, I was being told about some physical and informational barriers in the museum. That could and perhaps actually exclude some people, not only with disabilities. And we had the same aim to reduce the barriers, to make museums more accessible. And we figured we would not go on a regular approach to make some of the tours accessible. but our aim was to let the people themselves, the people with special needs, be experts on their own life and needed approaches, and educate them as museum guides, because then not only at one night or in one tour we have accessibility in the long way, but they are becoming part of the museum staff. And when you work together with people, it's more likely to be aware of the needs of the people with special needs. So we had the aim in half a year to educate these people for becoming part of the staff, of the so far volunteer staff. And they offered 6 tours in a cultural night that we have once a year, but also again 1 month after the other in international museum days or different other types and concepts. And there you can see some of the people that are involved and have become museum guides. And as I said, from their perspective, they would give accessible information and perspectives on the arts and their approaches to arts, and their lives and biography would be part of the tour also. Yeah, how did we start? We actually, I haven't been a museum visitor for almost, I would say, 2 decades. In earlier times, I went with my family to museums, and when I made visit some cities, of course, from time to time. But I was not a regular museum visitor. And I thought, okay, that's a good project, of course, but I wouldn't know if there are people in our company interested in the project, how many it could be. So we made a starting workshop and invited people who would be interested, and we had no regulations. And all of a sudden there were 8 to 9 people. One female colleague didn't continue because of some physical barriers in the museum. But all the other 8 were holding up to the project, and we made the surrounding so that their dream that it then was developing, going on, would become true. And we, of course, were invited with open doors in the museums. We could actually step into the museums also before the museum opened in the morning, and to some extent in the evening when the museum was closing. And of course, in the opening hours, we were absolutely welcome, and we got to know the museum also with the museum staff, the education staff in the museum, my colleague Birgit, and she showed us some of the rooms and the pictures, and the people themselves could straighten out what art object, what picture might interest them. And then we call it, made a museum rally, and also a little bit of a casting. The people would make some pictures from their art objects, favorite objects, and we were going into a movie bureau near to our department called Film Bureau, Movie Bureau, and they would have the opportunity to stand in front of a camera and to talk about their picture and about their persons. And as you can see, they were very proud, and we also, everybody, it was so touching, and 2 days we spent together there. And they could also see themselves in the movie, in the pictures, and would make a self-assessment how they would feel with their pictures, with their appearance. And from that day or weekend on, we went on with different learning units. We had a goal, like one art object would be described in about 15 minutes. So we had to fill actually somehow the 15 minutes. First, it seemed very long for the people, but then we structured it into introduction and about the art object, a description, and what would be about the art, the painter, some information, and of course the history time and whatever, and the personal interpretation. So we divided it up in several parts, and they would catch on and be very, very interested in it. We gave them some information, of course, some written information. We translated it into easy language, and some of them can't read. So we made with QR codes accessible information that they could scan with a smartphone in order to hear. And when we communicated, besides our project, we had WhatsApp groups where they could talk and talk into, make some messages, oral messages. And yeah, we developed like some learning units, a curriculum, what them individual would help in order to feel confident and enjoy their tour for themselves and also for the audience and of course the museum staff. Like when we trained, we made the experience that the museum staff would come and gather and would join. And first they made some distance from far, but then they came closer, and they were mostly very, very interested in how our colleagues would do it. So in these 6 months, we actually, as I said, gained a concept, developed an individual concept, because some people couldn't read. So for some people, it was hard to memorize what they would say. And it was always different. And yeah, we made experiences with that. So we wrote down some learning units in theory and in practice, and made some personal coaching too for the people. So after all, we met every week. Pretty much first 2 times a month, but then the closer we came to the cultural night, once a week and sometimes also twice a week for 3 or 4 hours. And we had some transportation too to the museum that was coming also on top of it, and made some preparation and after our meetings too, some coaching. And yeah, we described the competences that would be needed in order to be a museum guide. Some content on the arts, of course, and the museum and the history time, but also some competences, social competences. What would be the visitor groups be of? Would there be families, elder people, intellectual people, so more, or children? Whatever. We made some research on that and what the different target groups might need in order to understand and enjoy the information. So we made these modules like social competences, and you might see like the International Classification of Functioning, Disability and Health from the World Health Organization. In the red book. Beside that, we gained also the content from there, because this is an international standard, and like communication and mobility, all the skills that might be needed are there described. And we have seen to some skills, they were very, very good in that and had very strong motivation. And on other skills, requirements that would be maybe have more potential and be still a little bit weak and be not very glad on that, and we trained on that. So we made actually requirements for the persons themselves, and also, of course, for the environment, the learning materials, and also the museum approaches that might be helpful for understanding. And we made then some PowerPoints and easy language materials that some of them also could hear when they couldn't read, in order to gain that material when we were not there together with them, that they could be doing and learning the content on their own also. Actually, we have seen like at least 3 dimensions and 3 target groups on the project. Like when we made the project come true in the cultural night, we will also see some pictures. We had about 150 visitors in the first tour. And afterwards, we made a cafe from our company in the museum and drink some coffee and wine. And we were talking with the visitors, and some of them first said, well, this is a good project for the people with special needs. It might be some self-therapy, I remember one elder lady would say. But then when she was thinking, she also said and realized that it was also helpful for herself, because the information was understandable, enjoyable, and she gained different perspectives of different people that she hadn't been in contact before. And she said, well, I have to tell my friends about that, and that's hard to believe how they stand there, and they have only started 6 months ago. So it was also for the society, for the visitors, a very good experience. And they would say, if museums would be in that way and we could meet in our society, then I would come every week in order to get to know different persons and not only always the same museum staff. And of course, it was also good for most of the staff, a good experience in the museum, because the curator said, well, I was studying for so many years and reading content, what I could tell the visitors. And there's a young lady, and she learned it within a few weeks and months. And actually, I would get new information about the description and the interpretation and the art object. And I read all the time, and she's coming up and showing up so self-confident, and got for myself new approaches. So it was very valuable. And the curator said, when I would do this in the future, I would let them into my concept also, and would be talking in a tandem, in a dialogue with her, in order to get new perspective for my own concept. So actually, we see these 3 target groups at least, and I've now here a picture of my colleague Felix. He's also a museum guide. And he said, well, the project made me so more confident. In earlier times, I was working in a sheltered workshop, so-called, for people with special needs. Now I meet different people, and I'm meeting them also in the evening. Mostly I was staying at my mom's place in the evening, and wouldn't have the opportunity. And I'm talking about so many different contents and pictures that correspond to history, to nature, to love, different topics, and this is so important and self-fulfilling for me. And he would be actually also in his regular work more confident and social now with his colleagues and with females, and yeah, he not only gained into the according to the museum context, but of course there are also challenges to go for us, and what we experience so far in the museums, of course, would be the lowest challenge for us is to qualify the people, because we've seen they are so motivated, and for myself, we wouldn't have project money on that. We just did it because we had to be on progress for our aim, and for me it's still so touching to see the people, and it's so incredible how they learn and how they would stand up in front of the visitors with their clothing, with their t-shirt, with their shirts, so different. And this is not that much of a challenge. We just keep on going. But of course, there are some prejudice, yeah, in society and also in the labor market. I would say it not only depends the museums, but the first labor market here in Germany, that people with special needs don't get the job opportunities, and when they get them, it's just a sort of branch that they would get in to work with their hands and not on intellectual stuff. And so we have to deal with the directors and with some staff, because they feel also, we have to see insecure how they could talk and be together with the people with special needs. And our experience is, of course, when you meet, you follow up, and yeah, things would develop. But we have also seen, like, for the museum, it's sometimes hard because some of the visitors that are regular visitors, in their degrees, people with special needs are not appropriate for art education. They would say, well, you have to study that, and you can't do it just in a few months and then stand up there. Maybe you can do it for some target groups, but not for everybody. So some of the museum staff is also aware of this somehow problem for them. Some challenges also, we are now developing working opportunities, regular opportunities, and a 3-year program to educate them, that the education staff in the museum and the entire museum staff would say, well, now we have to be social workers, and we are not going out for that. We need some assistance on that they would, of course, get. They would be not responsible for the whole needs of the people, but of course to the working needs, and they would get also assistance on that. But they feel, well, when I'm alone with the people with special needs, what can I do when they don't feel good? These are individual limitations and also personal gaining of assisting people with or without special needs. Also, the lack of time resources is one challenge. We now applied for different programs in order to get funding. And of course, with the State Department, what would be the appropriate amount of assistance that would be needed, so everybody would feel quite well. And we need a legal framework, of course, in our state and in Germany and all the 16 states within Germany, and also in other European and worldwide regions. We are closely together with ICOM nowadays, the International Museum Organization, but also with the European Union in Brussels, with Inclusion Europe. So we would find and straighten out ways how this could work. And also, it's, as I said, a thing of development action plan of the museum to make more accessibility for their staff and also for the visitors, of course. And yeah, how we replicate, how we see how this could work in other regions is that we made a train the trainer concept with a handbook, the manual that I was talking about. We have right now 9 modules with 42 learning units. Like 1/3 of the learning units we are done through, but on others we still have to fill and to cooperate, of course, with museums and other professionals in order to make good content. And we, of course, want to make the material in easy language and in like design for all, that it can be heard, and of course when it is needed for blind people also to hear it and gets assistance. So we offer coaching action plans on that to replicate, and we look for, of course, the people with special needs themselves, trainers, because we see cooperation is very good between museums and social organizations and on education trades, and to make cooperation. And our dream would be to work to build up an international network altogether, like within the Zero Project and the ICOM and different organizations, because now we have started in Germany, in other region, in the Frankfurt area. We now educate in cooperation with 6 museums, and there are about right now 30 to 40 people with special needs in different regions, and also without our assistance that were going on their way on themselves. And we would make a networks. So now within these times, people can meet in physical and of course via Zoom and social media. Because we see they gain so much in communication and share their experience, and this is a good motivation factor for themselves in their peer groups and also for society, and also for volunteers and staff without disabilities. And in the midway, we also want volunteer education that doesn't depend on disability or not. We want to make inclusive groups. Yeah, so now I would show you some of the documents and the short movie, but we would be glad to stay in contact and maybe by some funding make something together and visit each other and share experience on inclusion and museum and society. And I can just show you now, and then of course we should get into dialogue. Just a second, I just have to finish up this presentation. Stuck, but yeah, I tried to get in another way. Just a second. let's see, maybe I can do the movie. Close it. Okay, I'll just work on that. In the meantime, yeah, you're more than welcome to comment or ask some questions, and I would work on getting the slides moving again. It's kind of hung. Yeah. Do you have some questions or comments?
Shmuel was asking before. Do you want to ask Shmuel, or I will ask you? He said, okay.
Yeah. I see maybe in the chat. Okay, very interesting idea, but I want to ask your question if the project of integration display include population guides and museums, this unique project for Berlin or this project. Yeah. Well, there are, as I can see it right now in Germany, like 3 or 4 spots of people who would follow up this idea. My colleague in Berlin, Stefanie Wiens, you might know from the project Platz da, place there, is also working on that, and we are together in the Zero project group on cultural impact and accessibility, and we are in contact too. And there are also some colleagues in the Cologne area in Germany. And yeah, from our network now in Capito and museums, we see it actually in quite some, like a dozen cities and museums, also in Munich and in Leipzig, and also for some rural areas, for like national parks in one area in Mecklenburg-Vorpommern in our state here, and also in churches. We have made a cooperation now with a church in close to Hamburg, like 100 kilometers away, and there are 2 people that are making tours there, and right now they're doing digital tours. So I think it could be appropriate for so many different places of arts and museums to become a true. And of course, they have different structures, and the project then would depend upon the structure with the people at these places. Like we spend like 20 hours a week pretty much on our own without refinancing. This was the amount that we needed to educate within 6 months to make 8 tours happen, like 20 hours a week, the amount, and maybe 5 hours from the museum staff a week.
Okay. Does anybody have some more questions? I think it's amazing. It's an amazing project. I can say that again.
Let's see if I can. Now now I'm in the movie, but again, just ask please, so we can answer the questions and comments first.
When you are coming to visit us? Well,
as soon as my chef, my female colleague would let me go. I would love to come. And maybe we can work on that to make a project, within Germany and Israel, a cooperation with the federal state, or we have like a lottery that is going on, inclusion. It's called Action Human, Aktion Mensch. We could straighten out that, of course.
Nils, who in Germany would give money for this kind of project?
Yeah, we have like some banks, like the Commerzbank, a big bank in Germany, would offer some funding on inclusion topics. Also, as I said, Aktion Mensch, lottery for inclusive society. And of course, there might be some federal programs, some museum programs too. So like we don't only work in the museum field, so sometimes it's hard for me to follow up to all the needs, and I'll do it a little bit in my spare time and also on some projects. But yeah, I would be more than glad, and also with the Zero project, to make some cooperation. Like in Austria, the Essel Foundation is that also encouraged us to develop it, and where we won the prize. So yeah, we might just figure what concrete might help.
Okay. So maybe we will watch the movie and then.
Yeah, sure. Now I would show the movie of some of our museum guides. Yeah, I hope you could also get the sound. These were, yeah, I think 6 of our museum guides. And yeah, of course, there are different personalities. We have one guy that you have been seeing in the middle period of the movie that is building up music instruments from wooden garbage that he's collecting, and he makes the pictures sound. And when we go from one to the other picture, he would play something that is related to the picture, and from Greek gods and different pictures and sounds. And then yeah, the people would follow him and be very tensed atmosphere. And some want to make the sound too, like children and also elder people, so they come in contact. And yeah, another guy was a soldier in East Germany, and he felt in depression after reunification. And he was giving, from his perspective, some information on pictures with war in history. And some lady, you might remember the rhinoceros, the big picture called Clara. She fell in love with Clara. She made a small figure of Clara that is also following her in her life, is being together with her, and the eyes of Clara when she comes into the room makes her feel calm and in love. And she says, Clara is female and very tall, and she's also. And Clara was in Paris, and I've been also in Paris. So she describes it a little bit and says she doesn't want that rhinoceros are getting hunted because she wants her children. She doesn't have any so far, but she might get, and that the children can see rhinoceros too. And she was going into the zoo. And I'm just shortly showing you a very small movie again, 1.5 minutes, because she couldn't also always remember the history where Clara, yeah?
What are the accessibilities of the guides in the film?
Yeah, one is they have mobile and psychiatric disability and mental, intellectual disability, mobility disability, and my colleague also is deaf, so she needs like transcription, yeah? So different ones, and the colleague couldn't always remember, so we made in that film studio with Legetrick, so-called a technique. You might remember now when you see it with Lego from my children, and she then had a structure when she was talking about the different places where Clara the rhinoceros was going by ship, and I'm just showing you one time. Yeah, this was like her structure, and also to accompany her tour with some different media and methods. Yeah. Yeah, so actually we...
So this is one of the methods?
Yeah.
I was asking if that was one of the methods to teach the guides, actually.
Yeah, right. We play the history or the plot that they were following up with Lego and made a film. Or one guy pre-recorded his text, so there was a dialogue between the tone and himself, and the tone gave the pre-recording like 3/4 of the content, and then he could follow up, and we made it feel sound good, intention, and there are different methods. Or one guy described the picture with nature smell, with grass, with plants, with herbs and stuff like that. So yeah, they got a structure, and not only to memorize everything, because the experience would be that this type of method education approach is quite interesting for some people, and they would come into contact with each other.
Niels, there is a question here of Ruth. Do you want to ask a question, Ruth?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a question, two questions.
Yeah.
One is about the guiding, the educator of the special guides. Is it personally educated or for a course of group?
Yeah.
And the second question is about the volunteers. What steps you done for keeping them long time?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we are pretty much in one group. Like we need the group for different perspectives, for close, good relationship and spirit. And when we practice, like in front of the art object, we not only would give feedback by my colleague and myself or the museum staff, but the people within the group, the people with disability, would give each other feedback. So they would learn like a little bit of dialogue and self and assessment and also from the judgment from other people, what they do good and what they might make better. And then from time to time, we need some personal coaching too. I did it, or my colleague, then in 2 hours. We are going into the museum, or we were working in our bureau, or right now we also figured with Zoom is a good chance to do it sometimes in the night, in the evening. So we actually see or have to figure out what time slot is appropriate also for learning for them. So we pretty much show what they need. Right now we, of course, give some webinars and seminars and digital tours. And 2 of the colleagues would now have the aim to work in the museum regularly. So we are in negotiations and also testing the material that we give others for accessibility and different perspectives and criticism that this project would replicate in other places. So they are experts. They're not only museum guides, but also education inclusion experts. So they are very excited to be in webinars. I didn't make it this morning so early, but we can of course make another meeting where they show their tours digitally. And they are also excited, and also excited about traveling. So it has so many dimensions. And they are very, very proud and feel like they're part of the museum, and they actually are, of course. So this keeps on going for themselves and for our project.
How much this coach is longer than not a special needs course?
Please ask again how much longer it takes.
Yes.
Well, it depends. Like we work on social competences. Some of them work in a cafe in our shelter workshop. So we see what they already have shown on competences, and well, some learn a little bit faster, some a little bit slower. They need more time, but actually we see that we make things like adaptations. We would not train to memorize everything, then we would adapt the surrounding in order to make it more fluent. You know, we also always, with the international classification, with the Red Book, we try where it's worth, where it's motivation to train and where we adapt surrounding. So actually we are in that time slot like before a new program. We every 6 months we make new pictures and art objects, and then it's like 20 or 15 hours a week, and also my colleague is within these 15 hours. And some also work with their parents, you know.
Okay, and the other question about the volunteers.
Yeah.
The other question was about the volunteers. The asking was what steps you done for keep them for long volunteer. Long time.
Yeah. Well, first of all, they get a little bit of money for that. They get 20 euro for a tour, and this is for them quite a lot. It's not sufficient from our perspective, but as volunteers, they get that money. And in regular working slots in the sheltered workshops, they would get like 2 euro a day. So it's quite a big amount of money for them. And also the motivation that they keep on going is like the visitors and their role. They're very proud, and we got some press, some media. They were on television, on radio, and for themselves and for us, their life changed all of a sudden. Yeah.
Somebody asked you if you considered working with the museums who are not for art, like other kinds of museums.
Yeah, we of course, it depends upon the structure, but we can give seminars and webinars, and we for some museums we made easy language texts and audio guides. We accompany them on these tools and projects, accessibility tools. And we also want to spread our experience and mix it with other experiences, because we made experience at one museum, and now we spread on to a church and to a national park, of course. And these are different approaches, different regions. But as I said, we would love to develop a network where these experiences are shared with experiences from other places. And also the material, some of the material that we made, like we have a handbook, a manual. I can show you just a second here. And we described like the different learning units, verbal communication, sending and receiving, in order to be in dialogue with the visitors, with different methods, theory, practice, always a task, and the review of the learning effect. And we have made, as I said, like 42 learning units, and on 1/3 we are through. And of course, it will be always overdone when it's used with different new methods and experiences. But this is how we would give the museums some of the experience, that they don't have to start at zero, you know. But it always depends on the structure and, of course, of the people. Do they have autism or trisomy 21? What maybe kind of disability they have? But first of all, of course, we see them as colleagues, and what their personality is and what makes them run.
Also, someone asked you about how does it affect the discussion of art with the museum, discussion on art with museum visitors?
Yeah, as I said, the people themselves would share their own experience on love, on war, on traveling, on working. Like we had one guy who said we were in the European Parliament, where there was a picture with the different currencies that develop into the euro. And they said, well, our reality is that we only get a good euro a day for our work. And we find this unfair. And the visitor said, well, I wouldn't know on that. And I see you here standing, making tours. And I might think I want to help you where you get on the first labor market. So they got into different realities, labor markets, or on love, like in earlier times. And some said, well, my parents wouldn't allow me to get into a real close, intimate partnership and to become parents. So when they have seen the picture where some of the princes and princess was married with 14 or 15 years, they would say, well, this is great. Actually, it was not their own love because the parents chose for them, but at least they could live it. We can't live it. Our parents wouldn't allow that. And they got into some talks on that, you know. It's different reality, different information sometimes, and sometimes they are on very similar approaches because they read or watch the news and TV, and they have some common background.
Well, Niels, thank you so much. I think it's an amazing project, and it's very interesting. I see some people here who definitely adopt this model and this idea wherever they work. And I want to say a few more words, okay? And in Hebrew, but stay with us because I'm also going to show a small movie.
Yeah.
It will be translated to English, so you can also enjoy it.
I have one question, just a second, please. You mentioned receiving feedback from museum visitors. Was there any interactions or feedback from artists? Yeah, we had one actually colleague artist from America. She actually used to come. I don't not from Israel, from Yemen. I don't know, but is living now in the US, and she made an installation on war. And yeah, two of our guides adapted to that topic. And then they were also doing Zoom conferences with her to America to get some information and to talk with her how the reactions in Germany were on that installation. So for us, it was a totally, right now here to talk with you, a totally new world and experience. And to realize what we have in common.
I can ask you one question.
Yeah, sure.
You hear me? Okay,
Yes.
I want to ask you if this project, this private entrepreneurship or this project in cooperation with any state or municipality authorities?
Yeah. Actually, it's a cooperation with a state museum. So the museum is not private, but state-owned. And yeah, we made a contract, but we didn't get any money or funding so far. Like, as I said, we were always working, doing, and we wanted some prizes, some small money on that. But if this is your question, actually, we need to talk with the state, with the education department, that, and we have started some talks, that people with special needs have the right for education, not only in the field of gardening or in some factory work, but also on arts education or in universities for the staff there, for the teachers and the police officers. It's a whole range of topics, and So we have these talks because they are also responsible of giving education approaches and also for work, like 5% on companies over 20 people have to be with disability in Germany. But if they wouldn't reach this amount, this quote, they could also pay money. And with that money, of course, should be spent on inclusion matters and topics. So we actually want to develop a program that this is a fundamental human right. And it's also, we see, good for society and good for the museums and to talk, to be in civil talks. Yeah.
Okay, a few more words, okay? In Hebrew and then in English. בארץ, מעניין אתכם הנושא הזה של העסקה של אנשים עם מוגבלויות. אז יש את המטה לשילוב אנשים עם מוגבלות בשוק העבודה של משרד הכלכלה. הם נותנים את כל המידע שקשור לזה, עוסקים באמת בליווי ובהכשרה וגם הרבה פעמים באיתור אם צריך. לג'וינט ישראל יש פרויקט מקסים, תוכנית שנקראת רמפה, שהיא ממש בזה היא עוסקת באיתור עובדים עם מוגבלויות והשילוב שלהם בתעסוקה. הם ממש עושים את כל התהליך של הרעיון ואז של ההשמה והליווי תוך כדי. ולשירות לאומי, גם לשלומית, גם לבת עמי, מי שמכיר את הארגונים האלה, יש להם בתוך הארגון, בתוך העמותות, יש גוף ספציפי שמתעסק בנושא של העסקה של אנשים, בני נוער עם מוגבלויות או בני שירות עם מוגבלויות, ממש ממש מומלץ. Neil, just a second, I will close this. Neil, if you can write your details on the chat, maybe if somebody has questions, then it will be wonderful. And just for finishing, I want to say, to show a small movie, we were also doing this sort of practice with people with disabilities. It was actually two groups. One was in the Modi'in region with the people with different kind of disabilities. And the other one was for people with intellectual disabilities around the Gilboa, around Afula, Bet Shean, whoever knows, it's in the north in Israel. And those two groups were, somebody is looking for my children. And those two groups actually worked and studied how to be guides in nature parks. They don't have like the card, the certificate from the government to guide everywhere, but they can guide in small reserves or closed reserves as volunteers, and then it's amazing. So I will show you the small movie, and thank you for whoever stayed until now, and tomorrow whoever wants to join us for another lecture in the morning with participants from the Natural History Museum in London is more than welcome to join, to write me, and I will send in the link. So let's try to show the movie now.
Thank you very much, Niels and Vered.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It's very interesting. Thank you.
אני עשיתי על הדוכיפת שהיא עוף וגם צבע גופה חום צבעיו, כזה כיף ללמוד, לטייל, טיולים.
יש לי יותר כלים להדרכה, יש לי יותר הבנה למה שאני מדריך, פרגון לא נורמלי בין אחד לשני. והתחנה שאנחנו נמצאים בה עכשיו היא תחנה שאפשר לשמוע בה ואפשר לנגן בה בלי לראות. היי, סתם! כל הכבוד. והמקור המידע שלי זה האינטרנט. מקור המידע זה האינטרנט. כן? מצוין. מבחינתי זו הייתה סגירת מעגל.
וואו. כבר, איך אומרים את זה כבר, וואו. כבר יותר ביטחון עצמי. והנה אני כבר עומדת פה ואומרת את הכל.
Wow.
So,
Yeah, so impressive and touching. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you everyone for listening to this and for doing one more good thing for the world. And I hope we will manage to make this project also here and wherever it is. Niels, thank you so much for your time. And we really hope to see you in Israel.
Yeah.
We'll be happy to host you here.
Yeah, I would be glad too. And you're of course invited in Germany. And yeah, let's stay in contact and share experience and work on that topic. Yeah.
Great.
Have a nice day and stay very safe, you and your families and everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.